When we do research and we gather data, we can collect different kinds of data from a different number of individuals. And these individuals can be, people if we're studying people or human behavior, but they're not limited to people. We can also do research on mountains and stars and viruses. There's all sorts of things we can do research on and sizes of data sets that we can gather. So I'm going to distinguish between population data, sample data, and case reports, which are also sometimes called anecdotes. So population data means you're acquiring data from all members of the group. Now, a population doesn't necessarily need to be every single human being that's alive right now. Maybe the research that you're doing is on the salaries of people in a particular department of a company. So in that case, the population data means the salary data from all employees of that department of that company. Maybe that's only 15 people. So population doesn't necessarily mean that it's huge, although it often does. But population data just means that you're getting data from every single individual that you are interested in. And then we have sample data. And sample data means that you're acquiring data only from some of the members of a group. And hopefully these are randomly selected members. If they are randomly selected members of a larger population, then it's feasible to generalize what we can infer from the sample to what we can infer in the population. So an example of sample data might be if you are interested in whether people still like to eat chocolate ice cream right after they brush their teeth. It's not feasible to go around to all 7.5 billion people in the world and have them eat chocolate ice cream and then brush their teeth and eat chocolate ice cream again. So instead, you're going to get a sample of people. These are going to be some lucky people if you're going to give them free chocolate ice cream. But the idea is, you sample from maybe 100 people or something, and you assume that what you learn in this sample will also be true in the population, even though you're not measuring from the entire population. Sample data are important because nearly all of statistics is about sample data. We gather sample data, we do statistical analyses of our sample data, and hopefully we can generalize what we've learned about our sample data to the larger population. Okay, and then we have what's sometimes called either a case report or an anecdote. And this would be like usually a clinical study, then that would be a case report, and an anecdote would be a non-clinical study. So these refer to data from one single person, just one person, and maybe it's, they're unusual for some medical reason, for example, or they were in an unusual situation, and then it's interesting, but it's still just data from one single person. So you can see the hierarchy here. Population data means we're measuring from every single individual that we are interested in. Sample data means that we get a larger than one, but maybe dozens or maybe hundreds of people from this population, but we're not measuring everyone in the population. And a case report or anecdote just comes from a single person. Now, part of the reason why it's important to know whether you are looking at population data, sample data, or case report is that the level of trustworthiness depends on what kind of data we are sampling. So population data are highly trustworthy. That is literally every individual that we are measuring. Sample data can be trustworthy, assuming that the sample is random and representative. So if we're interested in how, Americans in general think about some political development, but then we take a sample of people from one narrow community, one socioeconomic status, one educational background, that's not going to be a very representative sample, and it's not going to be random. So then in that case, because the sample data are not random and they're not representative, we cannot trust that their opinions will generalize to the larger population. Now, that doesn't mean we discount what those people think. That does mean, however, that we cannot make claims about the population because the sample data was not collected random and representative. Okay, and then we have a case report or an anecdote, and these are interesting and they can inspire real research to be done. But you should never generalize to a population based on what you read or hear about one individual person. In part, that's because it's necessarily the case that you're going to hear about the unusual cases that probably don't generalize, right? You don't turn on the news and they say, well, we found this guy who has a completely boring, normal, average life. He's just like many, many other people. No, of course not. You're going to hear about the really weird, unusual situation, which is by definition not generalizable to the population.